Commissioner General Matanga, you confirm you are the Commissioner General of the Zimbabwe Public Police?
I do. Mr. Chairman, in short, I would say on the first day of August 2018, at around 1800 hours, I received communication from the officer commanding Harare province to the effect that there was a violent demonstration in Harare Central Business District. The demonstrators were setting vehicles on fire, damaging property, and blocking roads, thereby bringing business to a halt. There was chaos in the CPD, and the police had been overwhelmed by the increasing numbers of demonstrators in relation to their manpower levels. The shortage of manpower was as a result of the deployments made during the harmonized election. For the record, Harare province had 1,175 polling stations, at which 6,325 police officers were deployed. Chairperson said, I also highlight that in the just elections, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission initially delimited 10,895 polling stations which needed to be provided with police security. We deployed not less than 5 police officers at each and every polling station in the country. For the reason that our organization only has a strength of 50,000 police officers, myself included, we even ended up augmenting our staff complement with 21,000 members of the Special Constabulary. To this end, we deployed 71,000 officers for this election. 54,475 police officers were manning polling stations, whilst the other 16,525 police officers were deployed on other duties, which include charge offices, general patrols, border deployments, VIP protection, support unit, and technical duties. Given the deteriorating situation in Harare CPD and the shortage of manpower to contain the situation, I then sought assistance from the Zimbabwe Defense Forces to quell the violence. And to be more clear on that, Mr. Chairman, according to the Constitution of Zimbabwe, Section 213 in brackets 2, which says deployment of defense forces. Subject to this Constitution, only the President, as Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, has power, and I'll come to brackets 2, brackets B. Has got power in Zimbabwe to deploy forces in support of police services in the maintenance of public order. And this section is also read with Section 37, in brackets 1 of the Public Order and Security Act, which says, when defense forces may assist police force under this act, if upon a request by the Commissioner General Police, the Minister is satisfied that any regulating authority requires the assistance of the defense forces for the purpose of suppressing any civil commotion or disturbance in any police district, he may request the Minister responsible for defense to authorize the defense forces to assist the police in the exercise of their functions under this act in the police district concerned. Having said so, Mr. Chairman, we are all aware that these two need to be aligned, and I am informed that the current Parliament will be doing that in due course. Having said that, Mr. Chairman, I have talked of events of the 1st of August, but well before that, and for the record, ourselves as the Zimbabwe Public Police, we started preparing for the elections as early as February 2018. And in the process, and it's common knowledge, and it's recorded, that during the campaign period, certain political leaders were inciting violence, and in some cases, not all cases, the sitting president was preaching peace. On the 1st of August, when I heard that Harare was almost on fire, it was as a result of some groups of demonstrators trying to burn some filling stations. Fortunately, they failed, followed by torching of buses and cars and buildings. And from my intelligence I had from my officers on the ground, it was very clear that at the end of the day, these demonstrators wanted to end up in the State House. So putting all that into consideration, there is also a question of when the defense forces were called in to help the Zimbabwe Public Police. I still remember on the 1st of August 2018, I appeared with my minister then, Dr. Obet Mpofu, before a press conference where I tried to explain to the journalists why the defense forces had come to help the Zimbabwe Public Police. When the situation had gone out of hand, I then alerted my then minister that there was no time to meet and discuss the situation. It was now time for action. Having alerted my minister, he then also invited the assistants I'm talking about here from his counterpart, Minister of Defense and War Veterans, in the name of Vice President Chiwenga. And within a short space of time, consultations were made, and my minister called back and said the permission to invite the Zimbabwe Defense Forces had been granted. And my minister asked me to get in touch with the commander of Zimbabwe Defense Forces in the name of General Philip Valerio Swanda, who in turn advised me to directly discuss the nitty-gritties of the operation with the commander of the National Army, Lieutenant General Chamisa. It was with a little bit of caution, ladies and gentlemen. There was no space for discussions. Fortunately for our people, while I was getting some briefs from my officers on the ground, members of the public were also advising the police headquarters of what was happening on the ground on that particular time. And I very clearly indicated to the commander of the Zimbabwe National Army that the normal process was not going to be followed because there was no time for that. But of course, I indicated to him that through our intelligence, it was very clear that the demonstrators wanted to raise down the provincial ZANU-PF offices alongside Monumzela Street, the ZEC offices, the ZANU-PF national headquarters, and the Rainbow Towers, which was accommodating the command center for the elections, where my Chibumba, Justice Chibumba, was based. Not forgetting that at the command center, that's where I still remember most of the observer team leaders were based, and I had upgraded this hotel to the international center. Considering that this place was going to be overrun by demonstrators, I want to believe that I was going to lose my job on that particular day. So all put together, the army rolled into town, and if you look at the processes which were supposed to be followed, there was no time for that, as I already alluded to. So after some hours, I then got some feedbacks that some demonstrators were even coming to a point of trying to fight the deployed army. And as a result, some members of the public, as the record shows very clearly, some people died and some got injured in the process. Mr. Chairman, I can go on and on. I think at this stage, maybe I can entertain questions where you need to explain more. I'm in a position to do that. Mr. Chairman, I think.
Did you get to know the number of people who died in this day in question?
Yes, I do. On the first day, I was told, remember I'm talking of various sources of information coming to my office. But officially, I can advise the Commission that on that particular day, I was advised that some injured person was dumped at some Christmas clinic alongside Zunda clinic, and in the process, the person died. That was one. Secondly, I was advised that a woman had died as a result of a gunshot that was at corner Kenneth Kaunda Avenue and Ines Terrace. And thirdly, I was told of some person who had been shot at Kopa Kubana and was rushed to Harare Hospital and later on transferred to Parenya Hospital. And the information I have is, again, that body was dumped at the hospital. And that was that for the day. The following morning, early in the morning, I was then advised by our officer commanding Harare Province, Senior Assistant Commissioner Mbele, that some dead body had been reported at Avenues Clinic. Again, maybe this body was taken there by well-wishers and they were not brave enough to officially hand over the injured person to the authorities. Then, of course, coming to the final count, we came up with 6 dead bodies. And as we speak now, some people talk of some 14 to 20 people injured. And as a result of this commission, I am told some people are still on their way coming to report to the police. Our doors are open. Please, I'm appealing to the people to come forward with the report. All reports received by the police were investigated, or would I say, those similar investigations, they are being investigated. And as a matter of fact, I want to put it on record that when a report is made at the police station, in circumstances where we are talking about the 1st of August, such cases are normally handed over to our law and order section in the CID department to carry out special investigations. And I want to assure the Commission that all these cases are being investigated. And as a matter of fact, I am reliably informed that some investigations have been slowed down a little bit because we are still waiting for medical postmortem reports from the health sector. Why there have been these delays, I cannot speak on their behalf. But as and when we receive them, I can assure you that the investigation will continue.
Finally, this commission had evidence from Albert Nure, who was the officer commanding Harare district, to the effect that he was not then informed of the coming in of the army, although he confirmed that he had requested for their involvement. Would you have anything to say on that, in that regard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think he's saying that as someone who was not alert on his duty. Time did not allow us to follow the normal procedure to advise this officer. But I want to assure you that when I got the authority to invite the defense forces, my deputy in charge of operations, at that time he was airborne in an Air Force helicopter, because We also wanted to get reports from someone seen from the air. So I then communicated with my deputy who was airborne, and that information filtered down to the officer commanding province. And by then, most, if not all the officers were not in their offices. Some were complaining of the poor network and whatever, but that was not really a big issue. The issue was to contain the situation on the ground, because unfortunately for these demonstrators, they were not grouped in one place. They were spread all over town. Obviously, especially the young ones, boys and girls, they had taken this bronco and other alcoholic stuff, and really they were out of their mind. So the question of the regulating authority not getting the order from direct for me is not misplaced because of the time factor. Thank you.
Is there any law that empowers the police to do something about inciting public violence?
The law is there. Fortunately, we had a seminar which was conducted by the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, Justice Chigumba, at one of our conference rooms, and it was very clear, and it is still very clear in my mind, that the Electoral Act did not allow people to incite violence.
Would it be correct to say that the police have never really acted on this law?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to history, I borrowed some facts from within the continent, where by arresting a leader of the main opposition party, would have worsened the situation. And I'm taking a cue from the Kenyan situation, where more than 1,000 people died during their election period. And to go further, it is on record that the lawyer of the main opposition leader in Kenya, Raila Odinga, by the name Silas Jagakimba, if I'm not mistaken, was in the country to advise our main opposition leader on how to proceed with actions which took place on the 1st of August. When I got that information, unfortunately, he had left the country on the 31st of July, going back to Kenya. So really, up to this hour, I still feel that it would be very improper for me to arrest the leader of the opposition party in the name of Nelson Chamisa, because not too long ago, when our state president was in New York, attending some conference there, he also extended some olive leaf where he was going to propose to his parliament to open a special office to accommodate the opposition leader. And I still feel today that the doors are still open, and it would be very improper for me to arrest him. But at the same time, I would want to say, crime does not rot like meat. The records are there to tell, and anytime he can be arrested.
Have you been able to establish whether they all died from gunshots from the army alone, or was there any fatality through police?
Our investigations have not come up with the culprits involved. And for me to say these people were shot by the army, it would be very unfair, because I was expecting to get evidence in the form of spent cartridges or bullet heads. Only to read through the papers that there are Zimbabwean citizens who do have these cartridges. And through the commission, I am appealing to them to come forward so that investigations can be carried out. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, from the time the election date, and even before, was announced by the state president, people, political leaders, were campaigning peacefully. To include also Mr. Chamisa in his party. And if I still recall, and on record, it is the first time when the opposition party was allowed to have their main rally in the Africa Unity Square. At the end of their rally, we did not record the enemy's heart. So, with that in mind, but of course, I was not sitting on my laurels to say it was peaceful up to. But I can assure you, the situation was reasonable, comfortable, peaceful up to the day, would I say up to the end of the ballot day itself. So we were then expecting results from ZEC, and of course the officials that certain individuals wanted to announce the results before the official board, the ZEC, to do it, which again is a serious offense. So I want to say before the commission, the situation was very comfortable, and considering that people had voted up to the end peacefully, at some point I did not expect the violence which took place on the 1st of August to take place.
You make an attempt to contact the leader of the opposition party and other entities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I made a lot of attempts to discuss these issues with the opposition leaders. I am on record and the other officers in the organization for giving out statements encouraging peace. I went as far as appealing to leaders of the observer teams to help us in trying to reason with the opposition leaders. Of course, they had assured me, unfortunately, I did not manage to get a feedback from them up to this hour.
Commissioner General, I want to take you to the law. I saw that you read the Constitution and the Public Orders Regulation. In terms of that constitutional provision you read, it says that only the President may deploy members of the defense forces. Is that correct?
My understanding of the Constitution is it is only the President, according to the Constitution of 2013, Amendment number 20 of 2013, it is only the state president who can deploy members of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces within and outside Zimbabwe.
And so, is it your evidence then? You read it as the Public Order Security Act that your understanding after you requested the Council that the President authorized the deployment?
My understanding, of course, and it's in writing, that the President did actually approve the deployment of the members of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces.
You have that in writing from the President?
Of course I do.
Now, turning to the Public Order and Security Act, after the approval by the President, was there any need for the Defense Forces to operate under the regulating authority?
Definitely yes. If it was not on a normal operation, the defense forces, members of the defense forces were supposed to come down to the regulating authority, who was then Chief Superintendent Nube, to be given instructions, of course, a situation which did not take place.
Then that means there you agree with the witness who came earlier on the regulating authority for arrival that section of the law was not compliant.
This question is coming from a specialist in the Constitution.
You are protected.
He's asking me to split hair.
Well,
I wouldn't say, it's now in here or there when it comes to law. But of course it was not done, but it was not done deliberately. That one I must accept.
I accept that. I think I took your wording here, which I correctly it is not correct. Your language says that the normal process could not be followed because there was no time for that process. Is that you are saying in that regard that you couldn't then follow those provisions because there was no time for it?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. If the time was there, this channel was going to be followed, for sure. Thank you.
I'm saying according to procedure, it was supposed to be the regulatory authority, as stated by Assistant Inspector Nuri, that he was then supposed to command the army to go. I'm saying since there was no time to go to the authority, was it then you who sent the army out? Who commanded, right?
Mr. Chairman, I can't run away from the fact. It's me.
Okay. And what was your instruction to the forces? What did you instruct them to go and do?
Right. The deployment of the army, like I've already indicated, was to make sure that these demonstrators were not going to run over the rainbow towers, which was accommodating the command center. Secondly, the ZANU-PF national headquarters, where in normal circumstances our ministers are housed, the ZEC officers, the ZEC offices themselves, where Justice Chigumba and the rest were accommodated, and lastly, the ZANU-PF. I don't know what will happen in between because the town was already on fire.
When the town was on fire, what would you specifically state to the army that was? You just tell them go and do what you can do, or there was an instruction?
Unfortunately, through the chair, it's like someone going through a jungle. I would not be too sure whether one would encounter an elephant, a lion, or whatever, but only to say, please, tread with the care. The situation is not favorable. That's what I say to the commander of the army.
So, in other words, there was an open instruction for them to use their discretion within their training abilities.
I wouldn't say an open instruction because in their today training programs, there's what they call military aid to civil power. And they are trained to quell out disturbances of that nature which took place on the 1st of August. And to say it was an open instruction, I would not take that.
The reason why I am asking is because we had all the witnesses coming, but it looks like the public wants to know who gave instruction, who said what, when the shooting happened, who said go and shoot. That's why I'm trying to.
Through the chair, right now, I cannot even tell you who were part of the 5,000, 4,000 demonstrators who were in town. So really to say they were going to do this at Corner Chitebo and the Simon Villa Street, it was going to be very difficult for me. But as the trained officers, I would, and even up to now, I would still feel that that was not a situation which they would not be able to quell.
But in your own assessment, was the power or the force used commensurate to the events that were happening?
Depending on what corner you are looking at the situation from a civilian point of view, for those who have witnessed wars on television, and for those who have gone into the actual ground, I mean, the assessment would be different. But without maybe provoking the bereaved families, I still believe that minimum force was used, because I know that our Zimbabwe Defense Forces are armed with AKs. If those arms were carelessly used, I can assure you, we could have counted 1,000 bodies in Harare Central.
I just need to clarify this point, because I thought I heard you say loud and clear that there was no space for discussions because of the urgency of the situation. And that meant that you couldn't place the defense forces that were coming in under your command, that they maintained a separate command under the defense forces. But am I wrong in that understanding?
Like I've already said through the chair, when authority was granted for me to invite the forces, most, if not all, the officers were on the ground. And these colleagues of ours also did come to assist us. And to say there was this possibility of them meeting to discuss on how to go forward, I would lie to the commission, there was no time for that. Because, like I've already indicated, these demonstrators were not on one place, they were spread all over town. And if I remember, my officers also were very much in danger, the same as maybe those who lost their lives. Thank you.
So to be clear then, you did assume command of both your forces there and the defense forces that joined them on the ground?
I did, because I was getting reports from individual officers who were at different corners of the town. So to say I did not, I will be lying. I was on top of the situation.
And when you take command, as my fellow commissioner asks, you gave orders as to how they should conduct their operations in quelling the demonstrators. Is that what happened?
Through the chair, when we get it trained, you are not told of what to do, prescriptive answers to unforeseen situations. Our commanders would take appropriate action as and when they get to a situation. And to say to a colleague from the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, when you see drunken people, shoot at them without them provoking them, that was going to be very wrong. I would want to stand by the Defense Forces that the commanders who were on the ground, if ever they fired their weapons, they did it in good faith.
And was there any order not to shoot to kill, but rather to use weapons to disperse?
Let's go back to through the chair. Let's go back to the golden rules of handling a weapon. There are things like, number one, don't point a weapon at an individual. The other one would be, if you are in doubt, don't fire. And many others to get to chair. To make sure, you must be certain before you fire a weapon that you are satisfied that when you pull your trigger, you will be satisfied that everything will bow down.
You said that there was some information you got that demonstrators were fighting against the deployed army. Do you have more information about that for the commissioners?
Unfortunately, like I've already indicated, I was getting information from even members of the public of what was happening on the ground. Unfortunately, I'm talking of incidences which were not recorded. And for me to say this really happened to, and this did not happen. But on that particular day, if I still recall, on the morning of the 2nd of August, you would see stores all over the shop, along the streets, and an indication that there was definitely stone throwing on the streets. Thank you.
And can I ask this question? Is there any possibility from your investigation so far that individual soldiers acted outside of the lawful framework that you now told us about? That they acted as individuals unlawfully? Is there any possibility of that?
I have informed that some members of the ZDF, Zimbabwe Defense Forces, appeared on social media in some kneeling position, but that is not enough for me to say this is the person who killed that particular person. I'm not in that position until investigations are completed.
I asked about that particular question because we saw the videos of the person kneeling, but then what we also saw is what appeared to be a commander appeared to be telling the person by hitting him on the shoulder to stop shooting. So that's why I was asking the question whether there's any more information at this stage.
Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, for that commander to get to that position of restraining his colleague, definitely I would want to leave that one to that particular officer. Otherwise, I'll be saying something wrong on his behalf. Thank you.
We appreciate just finding that the investigations are going on. Can I clarify whether or not it's the military doing those investigations or it was solely the police? Sometimes there's a difference of jurisdiction.
Whilst I don't want to talk on behalf of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, I know they got what they call military police. I want to believe that they could be carrying out their own investigation. But in the ZRP, for sure, my CID department is investigating, the law and the order department. Yes.
And do you know whether they've interviewed the families of the deceased or those people who were injured yet?
Through the chair, that will be part of the investigation system. Otherwise, I will be poking my nose in their day-to-day duties.
We will follow up that with them.
Thank
you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner General. I have two questions for you. We had a pathologist here, Principal Director Dr. Ore, presenting in the morning about post-mortem reports, which we now have. We have all the 6 reports. Our concern seems to be that we want to understand in terms of practice when the post-mortem reports, the final ones, because he told us that they come out after a month, after all their clinical investigations, they are able to then, after a month, say this is what killed the deceased. So we have those reports, and he says that they give those reports to the police. The police who can inform the family of the deceased, or if they want, if the family requests, they can also invite the doctor in the presence of the police to explain to the family. Is it common practice that the police call the family of the deceased? In particular, in a situation like that, like this one, where there is a war concern from across the board, because the families also showed concern that they were not shown those reports, where they did not request for them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The normal practice when it comes to postmortems, normally a postmortem is carried out in the presence of a police officer and a relative of the deceased. So I'm not too sure, maybe through the chair, at what stage these family members were invited by the police.
Okay, from their presentations here, it was, when they were processing the burial of the deceased. That's when either some got information, some got consent, others up to now they don't know.
So the visit was conducted outside the post-mortem time in a mortuary?
Yes, valid, I should say. But I want to understand that would the police make an effort to contact the families of the deceased to go through the post-mortem report with them? Is it common practice? Since the families of the deceased are concerned, some have raised concerns, some have not. There is a gap in terms of processing. This is what I'm trying to say.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I've talked of the normal process, and if something untoward happened, then I'm appealing to the Commission that investigations will be carried out.
Thank you, Commissioner General. The second issue is that when we visited state city offices, they talked about reporting to the police, and but the concern there was that they have not seen a follow-up in terms of their reporting to the police about damages at their offices. I just wanted to check if there are any investigations in place in relation to that report.
Maybe through the chair, with all due respect, at times I don't even have the time to check on individual dockets. If there are queries on a particular docket, I can assure you that the responsible officers will be directed to make some follow-ups on that. But if I got it right, maybe they've gone for more than 2 months without also alerting the police of what happened. There could be more to the scene itself. But anyway, thank you very much through the chair for alerting me.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think it's more of alerting you that they queried that they didn't hear or see any further investigations. But we did hear you that you said that there are investigations being carried out, in various places.
Of course,
we thought we should alert you on this one because it did come to our attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
There are two questions that are arising from the answers you have given to my fellow commissioners. The first one relates to this thing. Your understanding, which is the position which you operate, is it correct in, that, in fact, whenever the army is deployed inside the law to support the police, it must operate under the command of the police?
It is true. They are not commanded by their general. When they come to us, they will be under my command through my regulating authority, who happens to be, in this case, Chief Superintendent.
Yes, and I think we've already accepted that that didn't happen, that Chief Superintendent didn't command these people in our
Okay.
And then, so who was commanding the military from the police?
If I got it right, but it's not yet official, I am told that maybe the commanders who are on the ground are going to be invited to this room. But to say by name that it was so and so, no, I don't want to lie. I'm not aware of that one for now.
My question is on your side, because
yes,
the position of the law which we are agreeing is that the military can be deployed inside the country.
yes,
With the approval of the president or whoever else has approved. But once they are in the country, they must operate under the police, which you say is correct.
yes.
My question was, who in the police was commanding the military during this operation?
Mr. Chairman, I would not say they were being commanded by a police officer because there was no time for our commander, like the Subten lawyer was talking about, who was the rightful officer to take over. So on their way into town, that's when I indicated that, please, we don't want HIC to be overrun by the demonstrators. And of course, that was the trend. Unfortunately, this operation did not take a long time. It happened in a very short space of time. Within minutes, I'm informed people were out of town, and that's why all these procedures were not followed.
And one of the procedures not followed is that the military operated without being commanded by the police.
Within the unit which was on standby, we had also some police elements within that unit.
Okay, then I take it to this second statement you have made. I think I'm correct. If ever they fired, they did it in good faith. Are you making it an issue? In other words, that it is in doubt whether the firing was from the military or from the police or from someone else? Are you saying that as we stand at the moment, we do not know who fired?
Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, I don't want to preempt our investigations. The moment I start pinpointing at individuals, that would be very wrong in terms of the law.
Yes.
I also want to say, through the chair, yes, I invited members of the defense forces who were armed, and I also want to believe that our business people in town are also armed. And in some cases, I am reliably informed that within our main opposition party, MDC, we have what we call the vanguard, which is suspected to have been armed at some point, but I don't have facts along those lines. So I will leave everything to investigators to come up with the truth.
Yes, I'm not saying you should tell us which officer. I'm not saying that we are wanting us as a commission to preempt to investigate.
No.
But what I'm asking is whether you are making it an issue that in fact the firing that took place on the 1st of August was not from the military, may not have been from the military, and may not have been from the police. Is that what you are saying?
I'm leaving the ends open, and I will be properly advised by the results of the investigation.
And finally, the document you referred to, the one that the written authority for disciplinary, is it a document that you think can be shared with the commission, or something that may not be?
Very much, I have no doubt with that.
You can share that?
Definitely, yes.
Sorry, Commissioner Joe, just one matter arising. I understand the exigency of time that you've emphasized. What I wanted to find out though is whether there were any contingency plans for that kind of a situation arising. Whether before the 1st of August, that kind of scenario had ever been envisaged and planned for, where you wouldn't have time to go through all the formalities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have learned a lot of lessons from this incident of the 1st of August. Right now, I have instructed my planning and development department to make sure that we closely look at what happened on the 1st and what transpired towards the election day itself. So we have drawn a number of lessons from that incident, and we are going to improve even on our training program to make sure this thing doesn't happen again.
Commissioner General, by when do you expect the investigations from your law and order section to be concluded? More or less?
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I don't want to give a date because from the first time from the time the postmortems were carried out, the hospital officials who are keeping on postponing the days of releasing the results. It is until that time we get the results that investigations can be concluded. As long as the postmortem results are not in the hands of my officers, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry I cannot give a day of finalizing the investigation.
Fair enough. And by when did the ballistic experts start with the work of investigating? Because this morning we had a witness here who left cartridge casings with us. And it's surprising that we are now in November and a civilian is still in possession of empty cartridges, and they claim to have submitted a report which mentions this to the police, but the police never followed up on it.
Mr. Chairman.
What I'm saying is there are people who lost their lives, and the post-mortem reports attribute the loss of life to fired projectiles. And one would imagine that this would be a crucial aspect of the investigation conducted by, among others, ballistic experts. So that if the weapons used were not the regular issue, when the police or the army that was involved, then we can get that kind of information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also, as a senior police officer, when someone is still holding on to a cartridge, I develop some suspicions why that person decided to do that. Is this cartridge coming from this scene we are discussing or from somewhere? I know we need to be directed now by our investigations, and maybe through the commission, I want these people to be encouraged to come forward to the police so that they hand over whatever they have, and the investigations will continue.
Well, they left the cartridges to the Secretariat of the Commission, so we can then pass them on to you, Commissioner General.
For the sake of chain of evidence, Mr. Chairman, I will then instruct the investigators to come and collect the cartridge from yourself or from one of your members. Because if I do now, then I'll be seen to be on the wrong side of the law. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Well, no further questions, Commissioner General. Thank you very much for coming, and you may step down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the members of the Commission.